Alright, new video. I want to talk about some of my favorite gaming protagonists. I know this is going to be like kind of a hotly debated thing because there's a lot of discourse online about, you know, which characters are better than the others, which characters have the better narrative writing, which better characters have, certain moral standings, things like that. I want to get into my personal favorites. Before I get into it, make sure to like and subscribe. I just posted a Resident Evil 9 review. You should go check it out right now. Please, please, please. Thank you, thank you. Alright, in a best gaming protagonist video, you can't have this kind of video without, of course, throwing in Arthur Morgan. Arthur Morgan is the GOAT.
That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
He has some of the best complex narrative writing to a character I've ever experienced in a video game. People, and myself, like Arthur, because despite his, his violent profession...
You're a good man, Arthur Morgan. Good man.
Go out there and become who you are.
Arthur isn't like a stereotypical caricature, and he feels relatable. He's a flawed individual, he has insecurities, fears, and kind of a shitty, dry sense of humor. But he's just deeply loyal to the family around him, Dutch, the Vanderlyn gang, everyone, John, Sadie. Everyone appreciates Arthur for the person he is, in their own different ways. And I think what makes Arthur so incredible as a character is his entire redemption arc when he, gets sick throughout the game, and it causes him to completely shift his focus and reevaluate his life. There's that famous scene where he's like, I'm afraid, and he just wants to be a better man knowing that his fate is sealed. Honestly, Arthur's death was really tragic and was really sad. I felt a lot of pain seeing that scene, but Arthur is just great. I can't diss on the guy at all, and honestly, like, one of the best protagonists in gaming history. All right, next up. This one is kind of a niche pick because, it's not really a niche game because it's a bit popular, but this is Isaac Clarke from Dead Space. I think he has an underrated protagonist story. This guy has been through literal hell fighting nightmare spawns, essentially. And the thing about Isaac is he went through an extremely traumatic event involving his girlfriend. So in the first game, it is revealed that his girlfriend was killed during the outbreak on the Ishimura, and Isaac never got to see her. His last phone call with her was actually him getting an argument with her, but Isaac constantly faces the tremendous amount of guilt he has based off that conversation and based off of the context between him and his girlfriend. So in the first two games, Isaac spends those games fighting the guilt and the realization of what has happened with Nicole. And it's a really compelling story when you really think about how Isaac comes around towards it, because by the second game, instead of harboring that guilt, he confronts it and accepts it for what it is. And it was a really powerful moment for me because it realized Isaac, no matter how difficult and hellish the situation could be, he managed to let go and find new meaning. But yeah, enough said about Isaac. He's great. I personally love him. He's one of my all-time favorites. But let's move on to the next one. And this one's going to be a bit interesting because this guy, he's a bit morally gray in his decision making. But this is Joel Miller. Now, I'm sure everybody knows who Joel Miller is, but he is one of the most interesting cases of protagonists, like protagonist writing, I guess. He is a father. He lost his daughter during the beginning of the outbreak and seeks a new father-daughter sort of relationship with this new person he met named Ellie. And, Ellie and Joel relate to each other because they both lost people that they care about. And the thing is Joel and Ellie bumped into each other because of a whole operation with the Fireflies, smuggling Ellie. It's a whole complex thing, but the whole thing comes from the fact that Joel finds like this relationship with Ellie, and it creates such a strong bond that by the end of the game, when he has to deliver Ellie to the Fireflies for her to be euthanized and studied for her immunity, Joel, he just crashes out and kills everyone and saves Ellie because he couldn't risk losing his daughter again, essentially. And it's like, that's something I feel like a lot of people can completely understand and get behind, but we all know what Joel did was not good. Like, it's so complex because it's like, Joel did a loving act, but he did it in the most violent, gruesome, inhumane way he could because his guilt consumed him in that moment. And I think that's what makes Joel such a great character, is because he just has this realness to him where he's very flawed. He's extremely flawed in his motives and his personality, but he's doing it for a reason everyone can understand. And that's why I like Joel so much. You know, Joel's a great character. But yeah, I mean, that's all I can really say. I mean, Joel's pretty fantastic. If you haven't played The Last of Us, I don't know what you're doing. You need to go play it. But yeah, on to the next one. All right, next we're going to be talking about Leon S. Kennedy, the internet's favorite himbo. I personally love Leon Kennedy because his character is really interesting. So with the newer Resident Evil titles, I think they made a good blend of like Leon's campy corniness and his weird ass one-liners, and the sort of trauma he faced during the events of the Resident Evil games he participates in. And I don't know, Leon's just a great character because he visually is very aesthetically cool looking. With Resident Evil, it's always the rule of cool that makes the franchise so special to me. And honestly, it's his personality. Like, he is hardened by the world around him ever since the Raccoon City incident. And it's changed him in a way to where he still has that dorky personality, but he's just been toughened by the world around him and can survive in these situations. It's funny because despite his personality quirks, Leon just kind of is still strong in terms of how he handles the situations he's put in. You know, he's a confident, capable person. And I think we all love Leon specifically for that example. I don't know, Leon's a really great character. He's also one of my favorite protagonists. And honestly, yeah, there's not much else I could say with Leon. So on to the next one. All right, so for my final pick of my absolute most favorite gaming protagonist, it's going to be an interesting one. It's actually going to be Alan Wake from the game Alan Wake. But Alan is interesting because Alan is also one of those characters that has a flawed perspective of the world, especially in the start of the first game. So Alan has the situation where he comes to a town called Bright Falls, and after arriving at this town, he's there because his wife is trying to get him on a vacation there to get him out of his writer's block. You know, as an artist, he struggles with coming up with a new idea, so his wife sort of takes him to this location for inspiration to get his sort of curriculum going again. But inevitably his art wakes up a sort of supernatural entity that exists within the lake, and what happens is it's a struggle between Alan having this artistic dilemma versus fighting a force of evil. And Alan comes to terms with the situation by deciding to sacrifice himself to save his wife from the dark presence, which is the antagonist. And this is by the end of the game. And during the second game, Alan is in the dark place, going through loops and loops and loops of an endless nightmare to escape, using his writing tactics and things like that and his artistic creation to sort of manipulate a story to put people into the sort of reality he creates. I think the thing I like about Alan is he has such a character switch to where he starts off as a very selfish, brutish sort of like rich asshole guy to a sort of developing a personal relationship with the people around him, and just sort of an understanding of how the world is bigger than just him, and it's up to him to figure out how he needs to work around these situations in order to survive, essentially. It's a great piece about Alan sort of figuring out how to be a more humble individual, I guess. And I don't know, it's a great story. You really have to play the two games to understand it more in depth, but this is going to be my final pick. I think Alan Wake is my absolute favorite gaming protagonist of any video game I've ever played. And if you agree with me, let me know. But yeah, this is going to be the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed watching. The cover games video was insanely popular for some reason, so I'm going to try and get more videos out in the future. So stay tuned for that, and see ya.